Father got so frightened of him flying, so he gave that up and went into race cars. Then I got so frightened of race cars, so he gave that up, and of course proceeded to go into boats. At this point in time, I decided it's hopeless. He's all for speed, and I might as well forget it. So I support him. I'm glad he does it.
Nordskog himself obviously is glad to be getting ready for yet another race. As he makes his way to the breakwater for the start, Bob thinks about the competition and the risks.
I have to take for granted that there's a risk, and if you enjoy the sport enough and you like the challenge of the speed and the finesse of fine-tuning yourself to the water conditions, then you get a great deal out of it. But if you worry about the hazards, then you shouldn't be out there at all.
This from a man who's broken arms, ribs, and a hip, and suffered some sort of injury to just about every part of his body. But when it's race time, he's ready. They're off. Luckily on this day, the Southern California seas are fairly mild. Bob's boat is 1,700 horsepower, 38 feet long. In this kind of offshore racing, the gravity force on such a craft has been measured at up to 13 Gs. That's 13 times the force of gravity. The drivers and their crews will go the distance standing up. That way, it's easier to take the brutal slamming of the waves.
If you're going 50 miles an hour in a boat, it feels something like 100 miles an hour in a car. If you're going 100 miles an hour in a boat, it's more like going 200 miles an hour in a car. The sensation is entirely different, and of course you can run on a straightaway 200 miles an hour all day long in an automobile, race car. But to run 100 miles an hour on water on a continuous basis is very precarious, because somewhere in there you're going to run into very rough water, unseen holes as they call them, and the boat's going to get upside down and you're going to get all wet. So your feelings.
For years, Nordskog has enjoyed racing all kinds of classes of boats, and he has the patches to prove it. It's been said that these colorful race patches cost $10,000 a piece. That's how expensive racing can be. But other powerboat enthusiasts say that over the years, Bob has worked to popularize powerboat racing, making it more affordable and more fun.
There's no question about it. Without Bob locally, we wouldn't be having any races. So he's the father of West Coast racing, and as far as I'm concerned, he does a marvelous job.
He's made a lot of the rules, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have a lot of things we have today in offshore racing. He's a real innovator.
When you race a boat, the water's changing almost constantly, except on a glassy day. But most of the races we're in, the water is anywhere from lightly chopped up to sometimes very, very heavy seas. It's not uncommon to have to race in 6 to 8 feet seas, and I have had races that have been as high as 15 to 18 foot.
Again, Bob knows what he's talking about. He's been in a number of seagoing mishaps and crashes, including one that left him stranded in open water on a life raft. Why does he do it? Why do any of the racers face the expense and the danger again and again?
Well, you get a rush of speed, and you go as fast as the water conditions allow you. The boat will go up to over 100 miles an hour, so if the ocean allows you to go over 100, you go over 100. If not, you sort of play it by ear out there.
For me, at least, it's an unparalleled challenge and excitement, a challenge of man and machine against the elements, which you can never conquer. You just do the best you can and hopefully improve each time.
Like any other racers, they would prefer to finish first. But finishing at all is considered to be an accomplishment.
Well, to go as fast as you can for as long as you can. In a race like this, the boat really takes a pounding, and so do the people in it. And it's an accomplishment just to finish.
Of the 30 boats that started, probably 15 didn't finish, so 50% are going to be looking for problems when they get back in. So half the battle is finishing the race. You're sure not going to win it unless you finish, right?
For veteran racers like Bob Nordskog, each time out is a new battle and a new chance to win. After nearly 40 years of racing, Bob has no plans to stop.
Some people like to knit, and I can't understand why people want to knit. And it just happens to be my thing.
And powerboat racing is one thing Bob Nordskog has done longer and better than just about anyone else around.
You're meeting Chessie, who is the guide dog for her mistress, Fabiola Fregoso. Both of them were attacked on a bus bench last Friday morning, June 26th. Excuse me, not last Friday. Friday, June 26th, between 10 and 10:30 in the morning. We hope if you happen to witness that, you'll call us. Fabiola and Chessie are here along with Mr. Bob Nordskog, who is a great friend and contributor to Guide Dogs for the Blind, Fabiola being the media representative for that group. They are both here to discuss not only that problem and the $5,000 reward that Mr. Nordskog is offering to anyone who can help with the conviction of the person who did the attacking, but to talk about the temperament of guide dogs. Welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
Fabiola, can you tell us now what it was that happened on that bus bench on June 26th?
Yes, I was on my way to a friend's house and I approached the bus bench and I sat and there was a woman sitting next to me and I asked her if she knew what time the bus was coming. She didn't answer to me, so therefore I didn't say anything else. Next thing I knew, she reached down and she gave my dog a donut. And I reached down and I took the donut out of my dog's mouth and I turned around and I told her that she couldn't feed my dog because it's not good for guide dogs to be fed. And she was very upset about it. She got up and she started screaming at me. At that moment, I got really frightened and I got up, tried to leave, but she grabbed me by the neck. She threw some hot coffee on me and started kicking me as well as my dog. And yeah.
Eventually, though their injuries were rather great, they're mending both of them, a gentleman did come by and helped Fabiola wait for the police, and you decided to take a bus home instead. You now regret that, of course. What Mr. Nordskog has done, having been a great contributor to this organization, is to offer a reward. The question has come up, though, should guide dogs and can guide dogs be trained to protect as well as to guide? And your opinion was what, Mr. Nordskog?
My opinion is that it would be very confusing to the dog. They are trained to be kind and concentrate on the job that they have to do. And if they had to be able to protect a person, it would be an emotional change away from their docile method of normally operating, and to turn vicious and attack back would be quite a change for the dog.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work.
It seems untenable, and you agree to that,
Yes,
Fabiola.
I sure do.
Now, Guide Dogs for the Blind is located in a couple of different areas in California, right?
Right. Well, the main school is up in not San Francisco, it's close to San Francisco, San Rafael. And then they have a branch office down here in Topanga.
And your media rep, you have retinitis pigmentosa, which gives
That's
you
correct.
extremely limited but a little bit of vision.
Right, that's right.
Now, in the search for this woman who is evidently mentally disturbed, do you really think, Bob, that there's any chance, is there any clue at all at the moment about who she was or where she went?
Well, the number one hope would be that the individual that stopped to give aid to pull the woman away from her so far has not come forward. I would hope that that person would be contacted by someone who in turn maybe he could identify. I have private investigators that have been talking to people throughout the neighborhood where this attack took place. Hopefully someone will get a lead. I think it's a horrible thing, and as you know, with all the freeway shootings and whatnot, something's got to be done for people to realize that there are other values in life other than temper.
We have never heard so many stories about people being afraid to intervene when someone was being attacked. You did hear others walking by but ignoring the problem.
Yes, well, not necessarily walking, but I was aware of the fact that there was plenty of cars going by. And as a matter of fact, this lady pushed me away from the sidewalk into the street, which at the moment I thought maybe somebody driving by would see it and stop. But they didn't until finally this guy did stop.
Do you continue to travel that route?
Sometimes I have to, yes.
So you've been on that bus bench since?
A couple of times. Yeah.
I'd like to just mention to you that Bob Nordskog is a 74-year-old powerboat racer known throughout the world. In fact, he is the holder of 45 national and world records, one of them broken just recently. And he is such a contributor to this organization that they have recently been able to open a Nordskog veterinary clinic, which we're proud to announce. How did a man so active become involved in an organization like this?
Many years ago, my employees, when I was a small company, small organization, asked if I had some idea what they could do that would be of a charitable nature. And I thought and thought. Finally, I came up with the idea of maybe a guide dog type of program. And I inquired around the country, and every place I contacted people involving with guide dogs, they always said that the organization in San Rafael, Guide Dogs for the Blind, was the best run of any. I went up there with my wife and we checked the organization over, and we fell in love with what they were doing. And I came back, told my employees, and I said, I'll make a deal with you. For every dollar you put in payroll deduction, I will match that dollar. After these many years, it's run into several hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've contributed.
Remarkable work done, and a very well-run organization. Fabiola Fergoso, her dog Chessie, Bob Nordskog, we thank you for this. If you're aware of a Friday, June 26th attack on a bus bench in the morning, please call us or Guide Dogs for the Blind. We wish you all very well.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Nice being here.
Back in a moment.
This is the start of the Pacific Offshore Powerboat Race on the ocean just off of Dana Point this morning. These boats raced a course that took them north to Newport Beach, then all the way south to Oceanside, back up through the starting line at Dana Point, back up to Newport again, and then back to the finish line off of Dana Point. The course was 118 miles in length, and these racers cut through the ocean waters at speeds of up to 80 miles per hour. Offshore powerboat racing in California is really led by Bob Nordskog, who pilots his number 11 boat and has a riding crew that includes his grandson. You see, Nordskog, the pilot, is 68 years old. He won both of the big races prior to today's event, but he missed in his bid to make it 3 straight today. The winner was M42, the Sea Claw, driven and owned by Gerald Burns of Orange County. Burns was aided by crewman John Stoker in his victory dash today. The seas were pretty smooth at the 9 a.m. start, but the ocean got pretty choppy later, and the average speed was held down to about 60. But nonetheless, it was a great day for racing, with the sun shining and these big bruisers just churning through the ocean waters. The waters of the Pacific Ocean were being churned up by these big racers over the weekend. They are part of the Pacific Offshore Powerboat Racing fleet, and they slice through and over the waves at up to 80 miles an hour. These big babies cost anywhere from $100,000 to $500,000. The leader of the Pacific Racing Association is Bob Nordskog. He has 2 monster engines in his boat Skyhawk, engines that make an Indianapolis race car look like a go-kart.
These engines in offshore boats under most conditions are put to heavier loads, subjected to greater strain than the Indianapolis engines. It took several years to perfect this type of an engine to take the standing because they run with such heavy power constantly.
Bob Nordskog not only owns the Skyhawk, he is the driver. And it makes no difference that he is 68 years old. He handles the beating like a man 1/3 his age.
When you get into choppy water, sometimes the boat will chine from one side to the other, bounce high in the air, come down, and you have high G loads. There have been quite a few boat racers just in, without crashing, just in normal racing that have broken their ankles. And I've had the occasion of breaking ribs twice just from the pounding, getting torsion of the boat, where it slams you sideways very, very violently.
And good news for San Diego racing fans, Nordskog says we'll have a race off of our coast in about a year from now.
powerboats have taken over Lake Mead this weekend, in fact, for on through Wednesday of this week, and I hope that many of you will find an opportunity to get down to Boulder Beach. There's a book that's kind of the Bible of the powerboat industry. It's Powerboat Reports, and the gentleman who is the publisher, editor, and founder of this magazine is to powerboats what Bill Munsey, the late Bill Munsey, was to hydroplanes. We're talking about Bob Nordskog. Bob, without question, it's a pleasure to have you here as one of our engineers who has followed your career and is into powerboats. As he said, you are the man that everybody looks to, and he said this particular magazine, this issue, he said it was kind of like a fresh breeze, because he said he tells it like it is. It's kind of a unique position to be in.
Yeah, it is a very unique position, and of course we have an advantage. We put on these performance reports for the total boating industry, and we don't charge anyone. And this puts us in the driver's seat. If we were charging, then maybe we would try to dampen things a little bit, but we offer this as a service to the boating public. It's my contribution, if you want to call it that, to the boating industry, to be able to put on these reports, run the tests, and determine what is good and what is bad about a boat.
Looking at your jacket, is there any place that you haven't raced?
Oh yeah, there are a few places, but a lot of these patches are involved with races I've had in Europe, Paris, Berlin, South America. Most of them are in the United States, but they cover a long history of races. A lot of races, they don't give you patches, so you can say I've had a lot of races
What
that
was
don't
the first
show.
patch that went on there?
Well, unfortunately, it's buried on the back side.
Is it?
But it's an interesting type of recreation, although it is far more dangerous than people realize. I've had many broken bones and internal injuries, and you're fortunate when you can come out of it, and I've been able to come out of it.
We're going to see Bob in action for a minute. We have a tape here that was taken actually in San Francisco. I'll kind of set the stage on this a little bit. Remember what race this was? It was labeled San Francisco.
Yeah, of course, I've raced in San Francisco so many times I don't recall, but yes, I do recall this was the same weekend that Rocky Aoki was badly injured in his Benihana boat.
What kind of boat were you using here, remember?
It's a cigarette. It's an odd name for a boat, but it's made in Florida and made by a world-famous boat racer, Don Arno, and he just makes good boats.
What was the first offshore race that you were participated in as a young man?
About 1948, 49. I think it was about 49. That was the first offshore race, and that was a race that ran from Redondo Beach around Catalina Island and back to Redondo. On that particular race, that was the first offshore race, and my riding mechanic broke his back. So I thought, maybe this is not so good. But I didn't break anything, so I thought, well, I'll try again. Maybe my bones are tougher.
Bob, this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you'll be out there with your performance trials. And for people that are not familiar with what you do, we have some footage, I think it was taken last time you were here at Lake Mead, and we were very fortunate to have had a chance to take a ride with you, and we were very impressed. You spend a lot of time, you're very patient. But the thing that surprised me, you said you don't really care what the boat is when you get in it. You don't pay that much attention.
That's right. To me, the boat is a number. I step in it, I prefer not to know who manufactured the boat. I'm afraid I might be prejudiced. Everyone has this tendency. If I have, year after year after year, if I test a boat made by a particular manufacturer that makes a very good boat, then naturally my mind is already tuned to the fact that it's going to be a good boat. That's not what I'm driving at. I want to pick it apart, piece by piece, through the total of the tests that we run and evaluate every aspect of that performance. On the other hand, if I'm testing a very poor boat that was made by a poor manufacturer, I might be influenced by that. So I'm not even aware of what the boat is till I get in. When I get in it, within 1 minute, 3 minutes, I'm already picking up the trend of the good and the bad of the performance of the boat, the handling characteristics, etc.
Do you keep in mind that a family will be riding in those boats?
Always. That's my prime concern. I want boats to improve in safety, number one, handling characteristics, performance, and if a boat is not a good boat, if it's a ill handling, and there are quite a few of them, we give the manufacturer a choice. Either they remove the boat from production, don't sell it to the public, or they can make the corrections, and if they do make the corrections, we will retest the boat at a later date. Or if they continue to manufacture an ill-handling boat or an unsafe boat, we publish it. We tell them about it. Naturally, I've been sued, but no one has ever won a suit against me because they always seek the expert, and who's the expert? Okay, that sounds terrible, but that's the way it is.
Bob, you'll be at Boulder, down at Boulder Beach, probably, what, for the 3 days? Early in the morning, do you start early? For people who'd like to be down, maybe watch you?
Well, tomorrow, on Saturday, we're having World Speed Trials. We're going to be running 11 different classes of boats, and there will be probably 11 new records established, and they're referred to as Powerboat World Speed Records. And we start at 9 o'clock in the morning with the runs, and we'll be running most of the day, single individual runs with different boats. We anticipate somewhere on the low side 50 up to my keeper of our record says that we'll probably be about 70 boats that we'll be testing, all high-speed boats.
Bob, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Hope you enjoy your stay in Las Vegas, and don't be a stranger. Get back here more often.
Well, I certainly enjoy the place. Unfortunately, about the only chance I have to get here is during these performance trials. Again, Sunday we have a race, and then on Monday we start our performance trials for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
We'll be checking in with you on Monday.
It's certainly been a pleasure being here, Dick.
We'll be back after a short break.
This guy might be in disguise. 67-year-old Bob Nordskog. He went out for a morning boat ride today. Took his 18-year-old grandson Eric and a friend Norm Teague along with him. The morning boat ride with Bob Nordskog is not exactly like your everyday run-of-the-mill boat rides. This was the final test run before Nordskog, who already holds 17 national and world speedboating records, takes off on a 1,300-mile run between Canada and Mexico. A run that he tried a year ago before being weathered out halfway through.
I'd like to take defeat. I was weathered out of the run. I made it halfway to Fort Bragg, California, and I had to abort the run because of extreme weather conditions. And I just don't like to leave a job undone.
It will take about 30 hours in ocean waves to complete the run. There'll be an incredible beating on the 40-foot boat, the two huge motors, the crew, and 67-year-old Bob Nordskog.
It's hard on your legs, it's hard on your back, it's tiring to the arms, in position of doing the steering. But if you're going to make any headway, you have to go fast, and if you go fast, you fly off the swells, and when you hit the bottom of these swells, sometimes you'll have 2 Gs, sometimes 6 Gs, sometimes 10 Gs, and you have to have your body in excellent condition.
What do you say to people that tell you you're too old for this kind of stuff?
It's poppycock. I don't think I feel any different today than I felt 30 years ago. In fact, if anything, I think I feel better.
What's it like going 90 miles an hour on the open sea? Well, come along and find out for yourself. Does doing this kind of stuff keep you young?
Yes, you mentally realize that you have to cope with heavy physical strain, and if you're not in condition for that, you're not going to race, and I like to race, so you have to stay in shape.
Bob Nordskog, 67 years old. What's your excuse? That's sports. I'll see you at 11.
Okay.